All right, you're welcome back to the show. It's still Good Morning, Anambra. And the topic we'll be exploring this morning is, as the CBN extends a date of the Naira swap, of course, you know that the former deadline, which is tomorrow, 31st of January, that is no longer the deadline because it has been shifted to the 10th of February. 2023. This was announced yesterday by the CBN governor after a meeting with the presidency, and they came up with the idea, yes, that is, they need to extend the deadline so that people can still go to the bank and deposit their old Naira notes. But then again, after that 10 days, a 7-day grace will be given for us to still go to the bank to deposit our 200 Naira, 500 Naira, 1,000 Naira note. But before then, immediately it's 10th of February, it will cease to be a legal tender. So that's why we're here today to talk about some of the issues that have arisen as a result of this extension. Some people are still saying that they still need to re-extend it to a date like July, just like the House of Rep and the Senate that have been clamoring for. But then we just talk about what we know, the information that we have concerning the extension. We have with us in the studio this morning Chukwunonso Ekesiobi. Chukwunonso Ekesiobi is a lecturer with the Department of Economics at Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu University, Iwaria. And we say welcome to you on the show this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Glad to have you here. Talking about this extension, of course, you know that all this while people have been clamoring for the extension owing to the fact that a whole lot of people are yet to deposit their old Naira notes to the bank. But then CBN kept on telling us that there wouldn't be any extension. But yeah, voila, yesterday they announced that there will be extension. But did you ever expect that this will happen?
Yeah, well, I was kind of expecting it, and that's why I won't say I was surprised, okay. Because given what has been happening, especially in recent weeks, where we've been seeing some kind of mad rush and some kind of panic in the economy, it is only normal, it is only sensitive of the central bank to actually reconsider its position. Though I personally would have preferred that they stuck to that deadline because...
Yeah, because I know the last time you came here, you said something like that.
Yeah, I would have preferred it so we can pass a message in this country that we can actually say something and stick to it. It's not when they are doing NIN, they will extend the deadline. BVN, they will extend the deadline. Voters registration, what's it called? The PVC collection, you extend the deadline. And it has a way of, making people, less serious about most of these things. But assuming it was maintained, at least we can know that, yes, there's a time that, the central bank or any government institution can actually take a stand and maintain it. Well, on the other hand, well, the central bank, may have thought it wise given what it may have observed. That is why, in consultation with Mr. President, the decision was now taken to extend.
Okay, so you are of the opinion that it should have been maintained.
Should have been maintained.
Wouldn't have extended. But don't you think that if the extension didn't happen or if the extension did take place, that a whole lot of people will suffer at the end of the day? Now, yesterday when I was passing through the express, I saw people littered in front of all the banks, waiting for the banks to open for them to go in and deposit their money.
Why do you have to wait till then? That's one thing.
But what about the scarcity of the new Naira note? Because up until now, I don't even have enough.
That may be what they might have looked at and decided to take the decision to extend, because on the part of we Nigerians submitting the money, I think we seriously we should have made efforts, at least approximately about 100 days is enough to mop up these funds. But the challenge, why these old notes had to linger, was because of the availability of the new notes. So the central bank governor addressed some of the issues likely to have warranted the obvious scarcity of the new notes. Because first and foremost, money should be scarce. That is one of the qualities of money. Yes, money should be scarce. It shouldn't be everywhere. If you find something, in circulation, like that, it loses its value. Excess supply over demand will make something to lose its value. So the money should be scarce, and that's one. And again, I don't know. If we look at the objectives, what the central bank intended to achieve by setting out on this issue of redesigning the Naira, one of them was, to cut off the activities of counterfeiters, to do the normal routine currency change, which you have in other countries. At least the global average for which you are expected to change your currency ranges between 4 to 8 years.
8 years, yes.
So we I think since 2014
over 19 years
yeah,
now.
so I think 2014 is the 100 Naira, the centenary anniversary. So, but we have been far behind. So that one is necessary. Then again, the e-Naira policy, the government, the central bank, the digital currency, central bank is trying to push through. Trying to make people embrace digital currencies platform. And again, what's it called? How to bring in more people who are outside the financial system, especially in the rural areas, into the financial system. So basically, from what the central bank projected then, that we had about over 2.7 trillion Naira, outside the banking sector, which is worrisome. And when you have that kind of money in circulation, the central bank cannot effectively carry out its mandate of maintaining or controlling, as it were, money supply. So if the central bank cannot control money supply, how can it address policies that are related to money supply, like inflation, unemployment, exchange rates, jobs, and so on and so forth? So the supply of the new notes, first and foremost, we need to have one thing clear in our minds, that the central bank never had the intention of injecting the exact amount it is withdrawing. Yeah, so we need to get that one straight. So if we say we have not seen it, it may be perhaps, that gap, that deficit the central bank is trying to create so that people can embrace other payment options and allow the Naira to be, like I mentioned, relatively scarce so that they can control it. Then, again, you see that, like the central bank governor mentioned again, you've been having some level of sabotage when, these monies are actually disbursed, and somewhere along the line, financial intermediaries like our commercial banks that are supposed to make these monies available find a way of, maneuvering the system. Instead of obeying the guideline the central bank has laid out as to how these monies will be circulated or distributed, they go around circumventing this system. That's why, as at last week, Tuesday, in fact, up to Thursday, you still have banks, making old notes available in their ATM and the rest. And you'll be wondering, where are the new notes? So some of them, you find them being sprayed at parties, and some of them, there's this allegation, as it were, that some politicians are now, who had previously kept the old one, are now swapping the old one for the new one and keeping them somewhere, hoping to unleash them during the election season. In fact, I have this belief that after the elections, we will be seeing more of the new currency in circulation, when maybe they may have deployed all of them. Then again, even the central bank itself, it may have some insider operations, especially their staff.
Talking about sabotage, does it mean that there's nothing we can do to stop all those things happening? Because just yesterday, he also mentioned that they are going to work with EFCC and ICPC to do that. But then, do you think that they will be effective?
My issue is this. We always have this idea of talking tough. Anybody we get will deal with the person. Anybody we get selling PVC or doing this or doing that will deal with the person. But do we actually see these things through? So it's not enough to say you are going with EFCC. People know that the essence of going with EFCC and the rest is not necessarily to catch those who are doing this, but it's to also monitor the kind of monies people are bringing into the system. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with this volume of cash all this while? You'll be surprised that even I read a report not too long ago where it is said that even Nigerians abroad still have this old Naira notes. And you'll be wondering, if it was the same country, what will you be doing with old Naira notes abroad? And they tell you that when you come into the country after a long time, if you don't have these currencies, that they will charge you in excess of over 10%, over 100% of what you're supposed to pay in Naira. They charge you in foreign currencies. So the central bank should go beyond talking tough, saying we'll deal with this, we'll deal with that. If actually they are being dealt with, you will see that these things will be following the normal process. Okay. So you don't need to, now, some are even alleging again that there is a connivance with all these POS operators who, some of them are being owned by those working in the bank. So instead of making these monies available for you and I to withdraw free of cost, you now have to go to POS and pay. Yes, I know someone who paid as charges for 10,000 Naira withdrawal, charges as high as 1,500 because you need a new note. And you won't blame them, because this, will I call it liquidity shock? Let me call it liquidity shock. This liquidity shock now has made it such that it has disrupted a lot of things in the system. So in the meantime, it is not facilitated because of these shortages in money, availability of the money. It is now kind of serving as an obstacle to normal transactions that should take place in the economy. And you know that our economy, money serves a transactionary purpose. And in an economy like ours, where we still run an informal sector, so most things will still be cash driven. So now that there's this intermediate shortage of cash, you see that it's affecting businesses. When you go to purchase something, people will say, no, we don't want the old notes. You don't want the old note, but you are there for business. So how do you make it? Then you that need the commodity, how do you pay for it?
Okay, just still yesterday when Emefiele was addressing us, telling the people about the extension, that he made mention that since the commencement of the exercise, that is of mopping up the old Naira note, that they've collected about 1.9 trillion Naira, and then they're still expecting about 900 billion to 1 trillion Naira. Now, we just have 10 days, or probably, let me say now 17 days, if we add the grace period of 7 days for that. Do you think that within this period that we can actually, mop up the remaining 900 billion?
Yes, I feel so, because I'm glad that the central bank did not pay attention to those in the National Assembly that were saying, something around June or something.
Yes, June.
That to me was not realistic. So I think they were very careful enough, yes, to extend it, but not to extend it too far as to jeopardize the objective of the policy itself, and not to make it too short that will cause more hardship for the people. So if you observe, they said that they have received 75% of what they were expecting. So it's just remaining 25%. And this 25%, we expect that this time, this grace period, should be enough for people to go and make these deposits. But the challenge still remains, assessing the new one.
The new Naira.
But in the absence of that, people should begin to look for creative means of making payments, because that's part of the aim. The aim is to encourage financial inclusion and to, nudge people towards embracing, digital financial solution distance. So fintech companies should begin to also look at ways of, making the system, the financial system amenable to, these petty payments. Because somebody will tell you, I want to do this, something worth 500 naira. So what, I will make a transfer. But you just use maybe all these short message codes and the rest.
To make the
you
transfer.
Just need the person's maybe phone number, not necessarily account number, and you just run one or two codes, even without a network. You can you can do whatever transaction you can.
Maybe they work with the service providers.
Yeah, so these things now will now have to force people, those who are into the fintech space, financial technology payment solution space, to be more creative as to, how can they develop, payment platforms that can encourage not just the big finance, because come to think of it, look at the poverty rate in Nigeria. How many people, how much do you want to transfer, Kwano? How much do you earn? So they need to, define means of, making it convenient for people to make these small payments.
Then again, talking about making the new Naira note, available. I know you said that money should be scarce, but then again, we still need some of these notes to run our daily businesses. Now, somewhere in Castina, someone told me, or I read this on the social media, that they even took the swap to the marketplaces. You give them the old Naira notes, they give you the new Naira notes, and then. But down here, we are not seeing that kind of thing happening. It's all about going there to queue at the ATM, and if you get it at the end of the day, fine. If you don't get it, you go home. We made a report right here in Oka, the capital city. We noticed that one woman said that she came to the ATM point at 7 a.m. and at the time we were making the report, it was almost 5 p.m. She hasn't collected anything. Now, don't you think that it's wise for them to bring it down, apart from just giving it through ATM? Because I've not seen the 200 Naira note. I've seen the 500 and the 1,000. At least I have that in my possession. But the 200 Naira notes, because the ATM, and they're not dispensing that. The day I went to the ATM to collect, I collected just 1,000 Naira notes. So how do we even get the 200 Naira notes?
I've seen the 200 Naira notes on 2 occasions, and they happen to be at parties. So where do these guys who come to spray this money, where do they, and mind you, it's even illegal to spray the money. The same way it is illegal to charge fees. What these guys are doing now, trying to rip up people, it is illegal to charge fees for obtaining the Naira. You are not supposed to sell.
They are selling it.
You are not supposed to sell your currency. Yes, but nobody is talking about that. You are not supposed to sell your currency. Then the issue of a Castina and the rest is that sometimes I don't blame people who say that we run 2 different countries in this country, in one country. That whenever the Niger Bridge, that you have this sense of you have entered another country, and that's simple because over there they try to make the circulation of these new notes more convenient, especially for those in rural areas. Even the central bank governor made mention of that, where in part of their efforts to circulate the money, they had CBN staff accompany some of all these service providers to the rural areas where they had direct swapping, and for a maximum of 10, that how many people spend or keep cash more than 10,000. That's even if it exceeds 10,000. On those few occasions, the bank staff will use to make the money available or not. So these are questions we need to be asking in this part. Are questions like, are we not, part of the same country, or is there a different yardstick for measuring rural areas? Maybe our own rural area may qualify as an urban area somewhere else. So these are things that we need to ask, because it's another way of directly pushing this money in without necessarily going through the banking system. So bringing it, especially in the rural areas where that they don't really have access, the access to commercial banks the way we have access to them. So they need to consider that, especially in this part of the country where it is not yet rampant as what we have it in the north. So the central bank, I think part of this extension is to also explore other means they can use to bring in this money into the hands of Nigerians.
Well, we are keeping our fingers crossed, waiting for that. But then again, you talked about the e-banking, the e-money, and all those things that have been introduced by the CBN to make the monetary policy stronger. Now, you know that all these alternatives of, transacting our businesses and all that, sometimes they are not steady, so to say. Sometimes you want to do transfer and they'll tell you that the network, it's not connecting, or you do it and it will hang in the air for so many days and you keep going to the bank for reversal and all that. Now, talking about that, because as it is now, I know since we are having scarcity for some days now, that's how I've been operating. I'll just do transfer and that's it. But what about the unbanked? What about people that don't really know about this or don't even have a good phone for that? So how are they going to survive? And do you think that this policy is being, the CBN, that they have really done their homework well in implementing some of these policies that they've introduced?
Well, I would say that the reluctance of Nigerians to embrace these digital payment platforms or solutions just borders on three things. One is the availability. Where, how many stores, shops, and the rest can you go to now and you have the option of making payments, that way. So what is delaying businesses from accessing most of these platforms, obtaining POS or all these other services where maybe you can you can scan a barcode or something and the payments will be made. One is the availability. The other one is the accessibility. How can for instance, you mentioned the network failures and the rest of them. So does it have anything to do with the state of our IT infrastructure in this country? Do we have the IT infrastructure that can manage the volume of transactions that will come in when Nigerians, with over 200 million people begin to embrace, these platforms? Not, when you embrace it now, and maybe that's the thing is you have too many users, it's jammed, is this, is that. Then the last thing is security. With the way, these internet fraudsters and the digital theft that is going on, people are scared to say, I don't want to use this thing, I don't want to use transfer. I don't do this. I don't use POS. I don't use my ATM on POS. Why? Yes. Because maybe you can do that and, somebody may, compromise your information and use that to rob you of your money. So, and we'll be having cases where people will be complaining, I did not make any transaction, so and so have left my account, so and so have left my account. So nobody wants to experience that. So people are a bit skeptical to say, okay, they want to use this payment solution. Then lastly, in fact, minus these three things, lastly is that some persons are just so resistant to change that, we take it that, we are not digitally inclined, we are not technology savvy. No, maybe to transfer, let me use my cash. Why don't you continue using landline? Why do you have a mobile phone? So you should have continued using landline, since you cannot embrace new things. So it's just that Nigerians, we have to. In fact, I don't even want to believe that it is the technology infrastructure, because in countries like Kenya, Rwanda, and co, there are some countries that we have better, mobile telephone and internet infrastructure. The access to internet in Nigeria is higher than some of these countries. Yet they have all these mobile payments. That they use phones that just these normal phones that are not internet enabled, so just do small transfers, even in rural areas, and it works. So who says we cannot deploy it? It's just that we have not really decided to do so. So if we do so, you find out that people will embrace it.
Okay. Just like you mentioned earlier when we started, the major reason or the main aims why the central bank decided to redesign the Naira, which is to curb and see how we can reduce the barest minimum, the amount of cash that are in people's personal houses or custody. Now, this main reason why this swapping redesign, why it was that it's happening in the first place, do you think that we have achieved it? Or we are yet to achieve it?
We are still in the transition phase. So it will be too early in the day to decipher whether it was a worthwhile attempt or not. So it is only when, maybe going down the line 6 months later, 1 year later, then we can begin to assess what the central bank, the success or the failure of the policy. But for me, the objectives, like I mentioned, are germane. Though there are some flimsy objectives I feel that shouldn't have come up in the first place, like they're trying to curb kidnapping, corruption. When did the central bank turn to the police and the rest of them? It doesn't mean that when the new notes come out, or are released, people will not use it to still transact kidnapping. So you may just achieve, some, short-term gains. But eventually people will, in fact, even within that period, it was rumored that some of them, all these kidnappers and co, through their sources, were saying that instead they want new Naira notes. They want new Naira notes, or they charge dollar. So that one, and again, some people saying it is to curb vote buying, all those things. The central bank should not be seen joining issues with things like that. When you want to do something like this, you come out and say, look, you want to be in control of monetary policy. You want to do this. You want to solve some counterfeiting. You want to do this. You want to do that. Then again, there's something that we are not really discussing around this issue of too much money in circulation that you want to pull away. Some that you ask, where do these people get these monies from? Because actually, no money can be used in the country if the central bank does not print it. Mm-hmm. So is it that they don't have a monetary surveillance system where they gauge the amount of money in circulation and say, okay, we don't need to pump this in, we don't need to, I think we have gotten to a threshold. The only thing we need to do is when we withdraw money that worn out or have been defaced, we just replace it with that exact amount. We don't need to add more. So is it that they have not been monitoring what they have been injecting? And again, it points you again to this what's it called? This issue of ways and means. When the federal government has developed this habit of whenever it runs short of money for budgetary activity, it borrows from the central bank. But there's a limit to which the central bank is supposed to give the federal government money, like 5% of the previous year revenue. But we have exceeded that long ago. Now the central bank, the ways and means the central bank has provided to the federal government is now above 20 trillion. So when you are, and it's basically, most times printing money. So when you are creating artificial money, artificial this, and you are injecting, you now come around and begin to blame us again for having too much money in our hands. When you make this money available, that's because when you make it available to the federal government is not going to spend it abroad. It's spending it in Nigeria. It's paying contractors, most of them who are politicians, who will have access to hold, withdraw this money and hold them. And later we'll be asking, how did this money come about? So the central bank really has to do some introspection about these things, not necessarily putting it out as if we are the ones that went to the central bank itself and collected all the money yes, and started circulating them or started keeping it in our homes. No, this money, part of it came out from these ways and means. And as a result, that thing is also causing inflation. It's part of what is also causing inflation. When we say other things that this is causing inflation, no, these ways and means, because basic money side definition of inflation will tell you when you have too much money chasing few goods. And that's what's happening. You have too much money in circulation.
Yeah, just like you said yesterday that as of 2015, we have about 1.5 trillion naira in circulation. But by October 2020, it's about 3.2 trillion naira.
Now watch, within that period, ways and means of the federal government increased from about, I think that was about 11 trillion to about 20-something trillion within that same period. So if you connect the dots, you will see that this thing is partially linked to this thing. So we cannot be saying reduce it on one hand and be fueling it on the other hand. Oh, so they also need to sit up. Well, we continue with our discussion right here in the studio, but let's get people's opinion on this extension of CBN date of the new Naira, of the old Naira swap.
I see under text, under meaning, underlying intentional about it. Just the first time I heard about it, I think, or I thought that they want to check some politicians against next year's election, vote buying and something, at least to check them, to muzzle some, to weaken them, emasculate their powers of sharing money, to reduce the circulation of money in the system or in the economy or in the country during the election days. So it will affect people. Maybe if you look at it, but the implication is that the election will be somehow free because the vote buying will not work because they stuck their money somewhere. Then they will come out because they won't go to bank and look and get such amount of cash they will share.
We can understand the whole procedure. You can understand. We all Nigerians. We know how efficient all these institutions are. So we know for sure that it's going to be beneficial to those of them with access to power, those of them with access to MDs or banks, etc., etc. So that's what we are looking at. They want to keep Nigerians hungry during the election year so that they can easily buy votes. Imagine somebody with maybe small savings of 40,000 Naira and then he has to queue up in UBA or somewhere, and then if he's unable to exchange his money, what is he going to do? A politician from his own party comes up with 1,000. One must survive.
There's nothing bad, but at the same time, it shouldn't be our priority. You understand it? Sometimes I get disappointed the kind of decision our leader makes. I'm very sorry about that. But at this point in time, we shouldn't be talking about new currency. We should be talking about some other things that are more important. Education, we lack infrastructure, no law and order. You understand it? A lot of bad governance. And that should be our priority. No food and things like that. And things are getting worse. So that should be our priority, not currency. What will currency do? Will it add to our GDP? If it will, then it will be a good one. But when it's not, what's important? So we should know our priority. I don't think we know our priority.
Anambra, makana abia ime afia. Enwegasi many counters na circulate kita. Nke mo wan nwekwara experience ya. Na one day onwe one boy bịara igo afia. Wolo 1,000 naira nye onya. O webu na the money bo counter. So when you were choputazie the woman dokasia ego. So I feel we no put to am about 500 and 200 naira na enwegasi kwa counters. So all the woman obu na change.
We've seen people respond to that street walk on the usefulness of the new notes. A whole lot of people said something about vote buying. Now, off the camera, you were saying something that it's not just only with the physical cash that you can use to do vote buying. So, are you now saying that this policy, this news policy of redesigning the Naira, that it can't curb vote buying?
There was a time one of the governorship aspirants some time ago said that rigging has gone digital. So what stops vote buying from going digital? Yeah. So it's not, if we want to stop vote buying, we know what to do. So that just using the currency swap as an excuse is just like cutting off the branches. The root of the problem is still there, that people go ahead to buy votes and they are not apprehended, they are not penalized, nothing. And again, like one of the respondents there alluded, that things are so hard that when you are offered these things, you just have to take it and stuff like that. So I want to see it as a coincidence that this is happening during an election season, and not necessarily buying into the conspiracy theories that will say that the reason why they did this thing at this time is to have is to have a way of curbing vote buying. No, I won't want to agree with that objectively. But it can be, but it's yet to be proven.
Okay, another person made mention of the new Naira note not going to increase our GDP and all that. So what's your opinion on that?
You need money to facilitate transaction now. It is the GDP is a reflection of the level of economic activity. So you still need money to reflect in the to reflect that transaction that we aid GDP.
Yeah, sure.
So it will have an effect on the GDP, but not directly, but an indirect effect.
Indirectly,
like I just explained.
Okay, so the street walk was just on the usefulness of the new Naira note. Some of them also said that this is not the topmost issue that we are supposed to be addressing in our nation right now, redesign of new Naira note, that we have other issues that we are supposed to be tackling right now. Now, do you think that this time is not very good, or is not a good time for the redesigning of the currency? Of course, it was 19 years ago that we had that process.
The central bank is an autonomous institution. So it does not need to take your permission before it can, conduct any of its responsibilities. So if he decides to change the Naira now, he can go ahead to do so. It is not something that that has a timeline or a timetable that they must obey. No. If they observe the monetary system and see that they need to implement a policy that will solve or address an impending problem, they go ahead to do it. They don't need to come and start asking you for permission, or if this is the right thing to do, or if this is the appropriate time because of no. So we should fold our hands and say, okay, the election is coming up, so we should allow things to go bad till after the election. No, it is the responsibility of the central bank to maintain the monetary stability, the money supply and the rest of them. So and to issue legal tender. So the central bank doesn't need to consider anybody's time before it does so. The same way it doesn't need to listen to what these people that are saying they should extend it for 6 months or 1 year to do so.
And they're still calling for him to come and see them. I mean, the House of Rep and the Senate, because they are threatening to arrest him.
The only thing they can do is to go and amend the CBN Act so that they can withdraw some of the powers of the central bank, which will be very stupid to do so, honestly. Sorry for my language, because other countries are looking at ways of increasing the credibility of their apex bank, and we are trying to whittle our own down. No.
Okay, going by a statement by the Kano state government saying that this cash swap, that it can actually, make insecurity to be on the rise in the country. Do you believe that can
I agree with the central bank governor for responding to the question by saying that he doesn't want to join issues with anybody. So the politicians will always remain politicians. They may give a reason for anything. Some can come up and say it will affect those that are into commercial sex working. They can just break up any issue and just to hold on to whatever they believe. So I don't think the central bank should bother itself with issues like that. He's a governor in his state. Nobody comes to his state to tell him what to do and what not to do. So he should allow the central bank governor, or the central bank as it is, to do his job.
Okay, now, within this 10-day of grace, now, what are we to expect from the central bank now that, we have scarcity? Of course, I will still go by what you said, that Naira or currency needs to be scarce. But then again, we still need it. So what are we to expect from the CBN within this 10 days?
First and foremost, the CBN should carry out more sensitization, more awareness creation as to why the deadline was extended, reinforcing why the policy was actually, initiated in the first place, and, providing, solutions as to how to ease the burden of people going to, going to deposit these monies or obtain the new notes. So these are the things we're expecting to see, where the central bank will make more efforts to see that these monies that are actually injected into the system, the new money, don't get into the wrong hands, that it should get to the hands of the average Nigerian that needs it. So at least they said that the 900 billion remaining are still in the hands of those who are genuine people who have earned this money the proper way. So they should also make provision for these people to also receive this remaining 900 billion or something the proper way as well. Okay. So yeah, so I'm expecting them to after having studied what has happened in the past 3 months, look for ways of addressing the challenges they have faced so far, and block any barriers that is making this circulation of the new notes difficult.
Okay, just like some people are calling for further extension, do you see that happening?
No.
Okay.
I pray it doesn't.
Okay. All right. Oh, well, that's it on the show. We want to say a very big thank you to you, Chikun, also for coming here and chatting with us, and also letting us to know that some certain things that we need to know concerning this swap and the extension date. Well, it's now left for us, if you still have any old currency in your possession, for you to take it to the banks and deposit it there. And then while we wait for the CBN to, pump in some money so that the new note will be in full circulation, especially someone like me. I don't even have the new Naira note. 200 Naira note. I need to have that. Well, we want to say thank you so much for being here this morning.
It's a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on the show this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chidima Oranwa. Bye.